according to the Facebook page
Yep.
here. So. Awesome. Hello there, welcome to the Double Digit Hockey Show on ASTV Productions and the Double Digit Hockey YouTube page. Thank you so much for making part of your Thursday or whenever you tune into the show today. I've got an awesome guest lined up for today's show. Someone I've been looking to get on the show for a while here. One of my favorite guys around, well, what used to be in the WHL. He's since moved on, but Cam Moon joins me today. He's the radio voice of the Edmonton Oilers. How are you, Cam?
Doing very well, John. Thanks for having me on.
I really do appreciate this and appreciate your time. So we're going to dive right in here with something that I have to ask you about. 22 years calling games in the WHL. You played parts of 4 seasons in the WHL as well. What's it like spending so much time in such a great league like the Western Hockey League?
It's absolutely awesome. I feel so lucky, so blessed to be able to play in the WHL, which was a huge goal of mine as a kid. And that was kind of the end all and be all, is I really wanted to find a way to weasel into the Western Hockey League. And for me, that's what it was. Like it wasn't like I was like really highly touted and it was going to be a slam dunk that I was going to play there. No, it never was. So to get there was difficult, but really rewarding once it happened. And then once I was done and was going to school, going to NAIT in Edmonton here and took radio and television arts, my goal was to get back to the WHL so that I could call games and experience life in the league from a completely different aspect. And I was lucky enough to do that and do it for 22 years in Red Deer, which was, quite honestly, was a ton of fun. I enjoyed every second of it. And the WHL is such a great league. And whether I was doing the games for the Rebels on the radio or like the stuff I did with Shaw TV when we would, especially when we were getting into the playoffs and picking up a series and going with the series, there's something about WHL playoffs. It's so special. The way the cities get behind their teams and just seeing those magical runs to the WHL final, it's all pretty cool.
Absolutely. Oh, it's awesome. I have to ask, though, you made it to the WHL as a goalie. Why goalie? Did that position always stick out to you, or was that just how it happened?
Well, when I was younger, I played forward, but I always was like kind of fascinated with the goalies. Like I thought their equipment was cool. And I thought the position would be fun. And I played a lot of baseball too. And I thought, okay, well, maybe the skill set there would be able to transfer. So that was all part of it. And quite honestly, I liked having the responsibility of winning the game. If your goaltender is not very good, the chances of winning, they're not good. But you could be a winger and have a bit of an off game and it might not make a difference. It might, but it might not. A defenseman, well, it probably will. But in goal, it most definitely will. So if you're not sharp or at least above average, your chances of winning aren't very good. So that part appealed to me because I just liked having that type of responsibility, I guess. And then once it got rolling and every year as you got a little bit older and you worked at it and you got a little bit better, then it became like a goal to see how good you could get, like with all the extra work that you would do in the summertime. And growing up here in Edmonton, there was no shortage of ice time in the summer that you could get with really, really good players. So that helped too. I think, growing up here in Edmonton, that certainly helped a lot, I think.
It's always fascinating to hear how people pick their positions. I was always a forward. I never ventured outside of that. I don't know why I never did because, well, I was never really good anyways, but it's okay. So you played in the WHL. You moved on from there. You mentioned you went to NAIT. I have to ask, and I love asking this question because it's another part of my journey as well, is why sports media? What interests you about sports media and why you went to this field?
Well, because that's all I knew at that point. Like, when I got into junior, I was like, well, I'm going to try and do the best I can, and I want to play pro. So whatever it takes, I want to play pro. And then wherever that takes me, that takes me. Well, in my 20-year-old year, I was like, I'm not going to play pro. Like, if I would have worked really, really, really hard, I don't know if I would have made an ECHL team. And at that time, there was only about 9 ECHL teams. Mm-hmm. And so like the opportunity wasn't huge. So you had to be really good. And I don't know if I was at that level. And quite honestly, I wanted to use that education money if I could. Mm-hmm. So that was something that always appealed to me. And doing the play-by-play to me is telling the story of that evening's game. And I was always a bit of a storyteller. In fact, I still am. And I would be at the back of the bus telling stories of goofy stuff that had gone on. And that was like kind of my thing. So to me, this was just cleaning up the stories a little, mind you, but continuing that same vein, really. So I wanted to use the education money, and I wanted to come back to Edmonton, and it worked out that I was able to do that. So that got the ball rolling. And then once I was at school, it was the one thing about school that really opened my eyes is that to that point, so now I'm 21 years old, I've been completely engulfed in all that is hockey. Like, that is it. I was living and breathing it, working at it, working at my craft, trying to become a better goaltender, trying to stay in really good shape. And then, going off and playing junior. And, you've seen the hockey DB. I bounced a bit, like I saw some places. And the hockey DB doesn't even tell the whole story because there's even a few in there that aren't even listed. But so, well, at least there was a stint with the Nippo and Hawks in 89-90 that wasn't listed. 88-89, I think, is in there. But anyway, I saw a few places. When I got to school, in our program, I was the only person that was like me. When you're in hockey, we're all kind of the same. And we all grew up loving the game, and this is all we've done. This is kind of all we know. I get into school, and I'm with a bunch of different students that had completely different backgrounds, and we're interested in music, or we're interested in production, or we're interested in politics and news, like very different. I thought that exposure was really good because it opened my eyes that hockey isn't the end all and be all of everything. Although for me to that point, it was. Yeah. But for me to stay in that, I mean, it was a slam dunk. I mean, that's my comfort level. That's what I knew. Like, honestly, it's really all I've done. Like, I can't build you a house. I can't really fix your car other than very minor things. But I can tell you about a hockey game. Like, that I can do. And I knew that in school that would be the case, that I could do that. So that's kind of what pushed me towards that path.
That's awesome. I did look up your hockey DB page. I won't bring up the stats. I'm not like some on major radio stations who did that and allowed you to express your true feelings there.
That it did. Yes, it did.
But we'll go to something that we're more familiar with. I want to talk a little bit about the BCHL. You spent a few years there with, if I have it correctly, the Nanaimo Clippers, calling some games there. What's it like calling games at that level? Those leagues are underrated, in my opinion. I love having the AJHL guys on, the BCHL guys on. What's it like calling games at that level?
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. It was my first play-by-play job. And quite honestly, when I went there, the first game I did in Nanaimo was really the first game I ever called. I didn't call any games at Nate. My first year at Nate, I was playing for the team. My second year at Nate, I was doing television work on CHL games on TSN as a former player that had just played in the league, and I was the color guy. I wasn't any good, but that's what I was doing. So I wasn't calling games at the Nate Arena either. So I was doing freelance television through the winter, and I would teach at hockey schools in the summer, and that's kind of how I made my year. Through a contact that I'd worked hockey school with. He was an assistant coach in the BC Hockey League with the Cowichan Valley Capitals in Duncan, BC, which is only 45 minutes from Nanaimo. Said, hey, there's a job open in Nanaimo. So I call and I'm like, hey, this is who I am. And they're like, yeah, well, send us a resume and tape, back when you would send a resume and tape and not by email and not like an audio file. No. An actual cassette. This is how old this is. So I was like, I've got to give them a snippet of a game. I've never called a game. Well, I was helping coach a AA midget team here in Edmonton. and we had a game coming up against a team that we had played a lot. So I knew both these teams like inside out and backwards, thankfully. And I went with a little mini cassette recorder, like one of those itty bitty ones that you'd see like the newspaper guys with to do interviews. And I sat in the stands on the other side across from the bench, and I called an entire period. And then from that, I found 4 minutes that wasn't complete junk. And I mean, barely. I barely found 4 minutes that was okay. And I sent that 4 minutes to Nanaimo, and that got me the interview. And then the interview got me the job. And I went there, and it was awesome. I had so much fun. Some classic rinks in the BC Hockey League in the mid 90s. The travel, which was, different because you're on the island and you got to go on and off the island a lot. So that's, it's different. I wouldn't say it's better, but I would say it's different. Nanaimo was a great city. I loved the city. I helped out with the coaching staff for 2 of the 3 years I was there as their goalie coach. So I was involved with the team, although I was working at the radio station. Then I helped with their hockey school in the summer. So yeah, it was, and that's the beauty. I mean, in junior A, you got to do a lot of different things. So I got a lot of exposure, whether that was from the coaching side, whether it was the play-by-play side, or whether I had to do sports reports on 3 different radio stations, 2 in Nanaimo, 1 in Parksville. That it kept me really busy, and I got a ton of experience. I met a lot of great people, and wonderful city. I absolutely loved my time there. It was tough to leave, quite honestly. I had grown a bit accustomed to the cushy island lifestyle. Like, I was digging the fact that you could go fishing as much as you could, or that you could golf pretty much 11 months of the year. It was pretty wet in December, so that one was a little tough. But I had grown accustomed to that. So leaving it had to be a really good job. Otherwise, I just would have stayed in Nanaimo.
I got to ask now, this brings a question I didn't have prepared. You go from Nanaimo weather to Red Deer weather. What was that adjustment period like for you?
Well, I grew up in Edmonton, so it was a kick in the pills, like the first winter. Don't get me wrong. Like it was a little tough when it first settled in, but then you kind of get used to it. You're right. Nanaimo winter was, Can
you call it a winter?
No, it's just the wet season. You got wet and dry. I mean, summer's amazing in Nanaimo for sure, but the winter was pretty damp. But I got used to that. Like, I was fine with it. I know some people don't like it, that you don't see the sun a lot, and you don't, but I was fine with that. I didn't have to shovel the rain, which was pretty cool. So yeah, getting to Red Deer, that first winter was an adjustment. That's for sure.
The job in Red Deer comes up, you take it, you go to Red Deer, you join the Rebels. You're there for 22 years. That's quite a run with one organization. What was it like for you being in Red Deer that long and watching the growth of the Rebels and a lot of different incarnations of the Rebels during your time there?
Yeah, that's like when you take the job, I was like so excited because I'm calling WHL, and I was in Red Deer where I'd worked a lot of goalie schools in Sylvan Lake, and they would always put us up in Red Deer. So I worked with Bill Ranford's goalie school for 4 different summers. So I spent a lot of time in Red Deer. So I was very familiar with the community, and I knew where everything was and that sort of thing. So that was good. But when you go, like, I don't know that you expect to be there for 22 years. That's how it turned out. Like, I just sort of went, 1 year at a time. Like, we'll see how it goes. And I loved it. Like, it was fun. Like, you want your teams to do well. And when Red Deer had that run of 4 years of going to the 3rd round or better, including a Memorial Cup championship in there. And that was amazing to have a stretch that went that long where the team was that good. It's hard to do in major junior. It's hard to be that good for that long. And those are special times. And you think back of memorable playoff series where it could have went either way. And at one time something turns and goes your team's way, and then the whole series shifts, to me, those are like the most special memories. Hosting the Memorial Cup in 2016 in Red Deer was an amazing event. I've been lucky enough to go to a few of those things over the years, whether it be just as a fan, whether it be as a broadcaster, television or radio. And I know how much fun those 12 days are, and how it's kind of like a Grey Cup feel, in that people come from all over the country to go to this event, whether their team's in or not. They don't even care. They just want to go. And yeah, awesome. And we got to do that in Red Deer and host it. And it was interesting to see it from a host side. Like going way back when I first got called up by the Blades from the Nippo and Hawks, that was the year the Blades hosted the Memorial Cup, 88, 89. So I saw it from a player's perspective way back then.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's one of the best 12 days of hockey. I highly recommend it wherever you can go to it, because there's only one game a day. So you can go see the city that you're in, go do something, whether that be golf or sightseeing or whatever. And then you go to the game in the evening, and like there's so many things happening around the game, whether it be the fan fest that they put on, whether the big hockey house that they have going. Like in Red Deer, we had live music every night. There was a great big party after every game. I had to call curfew on myself. Like, honestly, like you got to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Because we were calling every game, not just the Rebels games. And after the first weekend, I'm like, I can't do this. Like this will kill me if I do this every night. So then I didn't go out until the last night, just to save me from me, So yeah, it's a great event. And we're lucky to be a part of that too in Red Deer. Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed my time. And when I think back, like I was so lucky to see all the things I did and be able to do the things that you do, and just go to the cities in the WHL and see all the different rinks and the fans. Like, man, like none of that. I didn't take any of that for granted, not for a second. Like so many great places in the league, and you like I can find a redeeming quality in all of them, but some have more than others, of course. But it's a fun ride.
Absolutely. As a broadcaster, calling a championship always seems to top a lot of lists of the favorite moment. Is the Memorial Cup championship that Red Deer won your highlight, or was there something else that really sticks out in your memory about the time with the Rebels?
Yeah, the Memorial Cup championship would probably be the highlight. The WHL championship was right there too. Like Memorial Cup is, because it's a tournament and it's a short tournament, like you've got to be right on the money right off the bat. Like you lose your first game, you're in big trouble. Like you're only 0-1, but you're a game away from 0-2, and 0-2 means you're probably done. So the pressure is different than a 7-game series. So to me, like it's difficult to win the Memorial Cup. You also need to be a little bit fortunate too. Not that you don't need to be fortunate in the playoffs, you do. But in a 7-game series, usually the better team wins. So that WHL championship of that same year, 2001, against the Portland Winterhawks was pretty special. So was the whole run, quite honestly. You could just tell that like that team was really focused. That team didn't lose 2 games in a row from the middle of December on. That's going to almost the end of May. They did not lose 2 games in a row. That's unbelievable. That's through the playoffs, everything. Like the team was expected to be good. They were good. And they just made sure that they found a way to get it done. I know when they were against Swift Current in the 3rd round, so the East final that year, and Swift had a really good team. And quite honestly, that series could have went either way. But Swift was up 2-1 in the series. Red Deer absolutely had to win Game 4 in Swift Current, and they did. And then they won Game 5 back in Red Deer, and then just basically choked them out in Game 6. I think it was like a 2-0 score or 3-0 score. It was a tight game, but they never let them score. So, if you don't let them score, it's really, really hard to lose. Like it was, there's a lot of special moments, a lot of, big nights at the rink, whether it's, even if it's a regular season tilt and you got a big crowd, or, the night after the World Juniors of 2005 when Dion Phaneuf fought Andrew Ladd off the face-off. They had just been teammates the week before, winning a gold medal with Canada. Then the next drop of the puck, and it was Ryan Getzlaf fighting Colin Fraser. Like, we're 4 seconds into the game, and all 4 guys that played in the World Juniors are all in the penalty box. The crowd was sold out to begin with, but they went absolutely crazy, and there was a lot of Hitman fans there too. So there are some special nights that certainly stick out. That's one of them, of course. But yeah, you think about it, it's a lot of games. There's going to be a few in there that definitely rise above the rest.
You had a chance while in Red Deer to work alongside one of the NHL great, really good owner around the Western Hockey League. He's highly regarded. I have to ask, what is it like to work with Brent Sutter?
It was awesome. I loved working with Brent. It was so good. Now, I predated Brent there. I got hired by Wayne and Terry Simpson, and then Brent bought the team after the fact. So he inherited me, was stuck with me, really, if you think about it. We had a lot of fun. Like, I think about all the laughs. Like, you see Brent on the bench, and that's game day. Like, that's in the heat of the moment and very serious, and no different than when he played. Long NHL career with the Islanders and the Blackhawks, but there's a lot of fun in there too. Like, we had a lot of laughs, like on the bus or in the hotel or whatever. Like, that's the stuff that I'll never forget. It's the fun that we had, and Brent, just like, he could have fun and he could have a laugh, or we'd get telling stories. The ones I like getting Brent to tell were especially the ones from his time in junior, whether it was with the Red Deer Rustlers in the Alberta Junior Hockey League or with the Lethbridge Broncos in the WHL. Like the stories from junior when Brent played, like the late 70s, early 80s, were like absolutely crazy. And John Chapman was the head coach in Red Deer and Lethbridge. I mean, Chappie's a legend of the game. And there was some good stuff in there. So I really enjoyed it. Very thankful to Brent and Connie Sutter for all they did for my whole family. My word, like the most, giving people, like just down to earth. Absolutely loved it. And I can't thank them enough, quite honestly.
We all love the harsh exterior of a Sutter on a game day, but they are really genuine, nice people who do a lot. I wanted to get that word in there with how awesome the Sutters are. You get the call from Edmonton, and a dream is realized. You get to go to the show and call games. Tell us about that day and what it was like to get that call from Edmonton.
Well, it came together incredibly quick. Like, it was only a few days before the season. So I didn't get to watch training camp or anything. I was minding my own business in Red Deer. We were still trying to figure out when the WHL season was going to start. So I was walking my dogs in the afternoon, and I got a call from Brent. And Brent said, "Hey, the Oilers gave me a call. They asked permission to talk to you. And, there's a radio job of some sort that I guess has come open, and they're going to give you a call." I was like, all right, great. So I didn't get too fired up about it because I didn't really know what it was or what it meant. And then I got a call, and they explained it and said, "Would you be interested in that?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. Can you do an interview tomorrow?" I did. Then I got to another interview the next day. Then they offered me the job the day after that. We announced it the day after that. And then I was in Edmonton, like that fast. I threw all my stuff. Wow. I threw whatever I thought I would need in my vehicle, and I drove straight to practice. It was crazy. And then I had to call a game like 2 days later. And you talk about trying to drink out of a fire hose. Like, that's what that was. I was trying to just cram. Because do I know the Oilers? Kind of. Do I know the rest of the league? Not really. And I had people say, "Well, it's the NHL, Cam. You know it." I was like, "No, actually, I don't." Because in the WHL, I'm calling 72 games, or now more recently 68. And those games are the same nights the NHL games are. So I'm not really watching it. Like, I never would get to see Hockey Night in Canada. The Rebels would play every Saturday night. Like, I'd see a handful of Oiler games a year, and maybe maybe a few Flames and like midweekers, and that would be it. And so I had to cram in the first few weeks where I was flying by the seat of my pants. And, you know, thankfully, my color guy on the radio, Bob Stauffer, him and I go way back. So I have known Bob like since my early 20s. And thankfully, Bob's really knowledgeable about the Oilers and the NHL. Yeah, his knowledge base is huge. So I had to rely on that a ton because like I was just making it up as I went, quite honestly, like just trying to get as much information as I could in a short amount of time. So that part was difficult. The fact that there was no fans in the building was difficult. And the fact that we were calling the road games not at the road games. We were in at the radio station studios. So that was a bit of a challenge too. I'd never done that before. So I had a bit of anxiety before we did it. But then once you did it, I mean, it wasn't too bad. You figure it out. All of that. I mean, all of it was new. So yeah, there was a bit of anxiety going in, but again, you figure it out. Just work real hard. It's no different than playing. If you work real hard and put yourself in the best position, at least it gives you a chance. So you put all those things together. It worked out. I was really excited. I was excited to come to the NHL. I was excited to call games for the Oilers, but I was equally excited to move back to my hometown of Edmonton. Like that was as big a part as anything. I still have lots of friends here, and I'm very comfortable. I always have been comfortable in this city, and in the summer I would come up here a lot, whether it was to go to football games or baseball games or whatever. So, and my wife and I had bought a place here 3 years ago downtown. So like this couldn't have worked out much better. So it's kind of all come together, but I'm very, very happy to be here.
I know how much prep goes into preparing to do play-by-play. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall while you cram to get that first prep in for their first game there. Must have had paper just everywhere.
Oh, it was like the night before the Bio 30 exam, and you hadn't cracked the book all year. That's what it was.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine that. Well, you get a bit more time to prepare for this season, thankfully. It's been a very exciting off season. Kevin hasn't been to make moves. So I wanted to talk a little bit and get your feel of some of the things we've seen from Ken Holland on this off season so far. We're going to start with your bread and butter, and that's goaltending. You're a goalie guy. So Mike Smith is back. Koskinen gets a bad rap maybe because of his contract. Is this a good duel for the Oilers at this time in their progression as they work towards winning this cup?
Well, we will see. If Mike Smith can play like he did last year, and I was so impressed with him. And the reason I was, it was a few different things. You watch him make some amazing saves. Yeah, that's all part of it. But his battle level, he would never give up on a puck. And it was always max effort, like every play, every game. And I found it inspirational. Like he made me want to go play goal again. And I don't want to play goal. So like, it was amazing. I thought he did really well. Mikko Koskinen had a bit of a tough start. Mike Smith was hurt at the start of the year. Mikko Koskinen had to play a bunch of games in a row. Team hadn't played any preseason. They didn't get off to the best start. Were they 3-6 out of the gate? But then once Mike Smith came back, got some games under his belt, Mikko Koskinen settled right down. And then we saw actually a pretty good tandem. If you look at it, you look at their numbers at the end of the year, it was really pretty good. So I hope they can do at least that this season. And if it could be even just a little bit better, in that we don't have the ups and downs that maybe Mikko had at the start and then a little bit at the end. There's a little bit more consistency throughout that. I mean, Mike Smith, he can just stay exactly the same. To me, that's going to be fine. I mean, let's be honest, it's not a long-term solution, but that's what it is for this year. And I would love to see it do as well or better than last season. And I think if they do that, they will have success.
You mentioned when Mike Smith came back that Koskinen kind of got himself into a bit of a groove. Does Mike Smith get enough credit with his leadership abilities from the back end?
I don't think he does. And I know that they're significant. Like, I know that he is a guy that is very well respected in the room and is not afraid to say something if he feels something needs to be said. And I respect that. So I don't think and you don't expect that from a goaltender. It's not very often a goaltender is part of a leadership group on a team. It just doesn't seem to be that way. But it is for him and for the Oilers. So I think that's a big part of it. So I think that, quite honestly, is why the team really wanted to get him re-signed for this year, and as it turns out, the year after that, because of what he showed with this team last season and the year before.
It seemed Ken Holland wanted to build on that leadership that Mike Smith brought. He brought in a couple other guys here that have leadership qualities. One of those guys is Duncan Keith. You move out a young piece, you bring in a Duncan Keith. What does Duncan bring for the Oilers? More than just the on-ice stuff. Is there more there from Duncan Keith?
Oh, for sure there is. Anybody that I've talked to that has been a teammate of Duncan Keith raves about him. He's great with younger players. Again, leadership qualities I think are extremely high. The winning pedigree, and that's obvious. I think he's got a lot to give, whether that be on the ice or in the room. And those are important things. It's important to have that kind of leadership and helping. And if you're bringing in some young guys, and on defense, say like Evan Bouchard this year, maybe down the line, Philip Broberg, it's important to have those guys lead the way, but lead it in the right way. And I think Duncan Keith is that type of player. And he really wanted to come to Edmonton. And that's not lost on me either. When guys, when they want to play here, I think there's value in that too.
Just Tyson Barrie is very similar to that, where he's a guy that's been around the league for a while now. He knows what it takes to get there and to win, how hard it can be. How important was the re-signing of Tyson Barrie for the Oilers?
Oh, I thought it got real important when Adam Larsson left. When Adam Larsson chose to sign with the Seattle Kraken, then I think the signing of Tyson Barrie became very important. Prior to that, I don't know, and I don't know this. Like I'm just speculating, but I don't know that it was as high a priority. Larsson leaving was probably a surprise. I think that seems to be the general consensus, that was a surprise. We thought he would come back. He was the best Oilers shutdown D last year, but for whatever reason chose to go to Seattle. And hey, that he was a UFA. That's absolutely his right. So now you got to look at what do you have and what do you need to bring. And Tyson Barrie absolutely wanted to come back. I mean, why wouldn't he? He led the NHL last year in defenseman scoring, being part of the #1 power play in the National Hockey League. A chance to come back and do that. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's usually not that difficult of discussion to have. As it turns out, it wasn't. And he comes back. So I think, once Larsson left, I think Barrie became a priority.
You have one more guy that got re-signed a little bit long-term here, and he's a guy that the Oilers relied on a lot last year, Darnell Nurse. He's another guy that wants to be there. What does that say about a guy like Darnell Nurse for the Oilers, and what do we expect from Darnell coming into the next season here? Well,
I think it says that he realizes he is a big part of the leadership group here, and he most certainly is. And he had, I thought, a really good season last year. I got to watch him prior, but only sparingly. So my comparison's a little bit tough for me as opposed to watching him night in, night out. But what I saw last year was a guy that moved the puck, plays mean. Sometimes if you wanted a left-handed shot, quarterback to power play, he had some power play time. He was good there. He did everything you could ask, and then some. He likes it here. So that's great. What do I expect? I expect him to keep doing that, but maybe even continue to improve. Like, I don't know that I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. Like, I think he's still getting better here. He is going to be a number one defenseman for this club. He's going to be a shutdown guy, but he's also going to be a guy that contributes offensively. Like, look at him last year. 16 goals, and like that was, most of them were even strength. Like, he just looked so confident and poised with the puck when he got opportunities in the offensive end. So, like, do I think he's going to put up big numbers this year? Maybe. I'm not going to rule it out, but to me, that's not the number one priority. It's being a really good defender and a guy that's difficult to play against. I think he is difficult to play against. And yeah, big part of the leadership group here. This guy works hard. Like, and that's the thing that stands out for me about the leadership group, whether that be Darnell Nurse, Mike Smith, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. These guys work hard in practice. And that's how you get better, is by busting your tail. And they all do that.
You've got some good leadership on that back end with those elder statesmen. Chris Russell probably falls in that same category as well. But the door is open for a couple of young kids here that possibly could crack this lineup. What do you see coming down the pipeline on the back end for the Oilers, the Brobergs, the Bouchards, as you mentioned?
Yeah, see, I only really got to watch Evan Bouchard because he was with the team all year, whether he be taxi squad or with the club. Philip Broberg, I've only watched at the World Juniors, and I know last year he was injured a bit. So that's until I get to watch camp this year, I'm going to have a lot better idea. I know names, but I haven't seen them play. So I don't like to talk about them unless I've actually witnessed them multiple times. But I did watch Evan Bouchard, so I can tell you a lot about him. Here's a guy that coming out of junior, really good pedigree, London Knights, first round draft pick, all those things. Like what you'd expect from a first round pick, all of those things. But what I saw last year was a guy that didn't panic with the puck. If he got it in his own end, there was a sense of calmness of just making the right play. Just make a simple play. Some young defensemen get a little panicky when the puck's on their stick, because they don't want to make a mistake and they don't want to turn it over. So it's just, as soon as they get it, first thing they see, bang, it's gone. Sometimes that's an icing. Sometimes that goes to the other team, whatever it may be. Sometimes it actually gets on the stick of one of your guys, but it's because it's happened so fast and the decision process is a little bit expedited, it doesn't always work. But for him, it was very calm. He's got an amazing shot. I think he'll see decent amount of power play time this year because he's a right-handed shot and he's got an absolute cannon from the point, even though Tyson Barrie is who he is. I mean, he's very good at what he does, especially on that power play. But I think Evan Bouchard, because of his skill set, will press for some time in that regard. He might start the season as a third pairing D, but I don't know that he'll end there. He could end farther up the ladder depending on his play, but I think he's going to get a ton of opportunity. Last year he didn't get a lot. Last year is really weird because those poor guys that were on the taxi squads, like you were caught in the middle if you weren't playing regular with the NHL team. But then you didn't want to send them to the American League because once you send them there, bringing them back up was incredibly difficult if your American League team was south of the border, like it is with the Oilers. So you're kind of caught in that spot. Although Bouchard did play and did get some experience, and I thought he looked pretty good when he played. There's going to be ups and downs with a young defenseman, and if you make a mistake back there, it's usually pretty glaring. But hey, that's how it goes. I mean, you got to know that going in with most young D. That's only the truly elite are going to get through that, fairly unscathed. But yeah, I see him as a guy that will move up the lineup over the course of the season and has a bright future.
I'm fascinated to see how Tippett uses this defensive group with these veterans he has and these great young kids that are coming up through the pipeline. The one thing that he has done, and he has at his disposal up front, though, is a Connor McDavid. And it seems the answer of finding a winger to play with Connor McDavid has been answered. A big fish has come in, Zach Hyman. What are you expecting from Zach Hyman? And do you see the big fit that everyone else is seeing with him with Connor McDavid?
Well, I expect Zach Hyman to do exactly what he did last year when he played against the Oilers. And that was work like a dog. Like, he worked so hard that he would create opportunity. And whether that's setting up a play or getting a goal, just out of, dogged pursuit of the puck in the corner, in front of the net, whatever. So, I hope that's a great fit on the left side with Connor McDavid. And I would guess, yes, Puljujärvi on the right side. So, I mean, I'm sure there'll be multiple different looks. That's what training camp's for. That's what the preseason's for. Like, I'm not going to say it's 100% going to look that way in the regular season. I mean, who knows? We still have, another month and change to figure those things out. But I think Zach Hyman's going to be a guy that adds some depth up front, which is what the Oilers were looking to do. Add some depth. He's a guy that can put up some points. He works hard, which I think is very important. And I think he could be an incredible fit with them. And then the re-signing of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to the 8-year deal. And I know Ryan didn't have the numbers he would have liked even strength last year. Power play was still pretty good. But I can see a bounce back year for Ryan. I don't know if maybe that whole contract status played into it. I don't know. But I know you don't have to worry about it this year. That's for sure. So it's I think their top 6 are better than it was a year ago, and that's a good thing. And actually, I think the overall depth up front is better than it was a year ago, with Warren Foegele coming in and likely playing on the third line in that deal that saw Ethan Bear go the other way with Carolina Hurricanes. So, yeah, that makes me optimistic, and it makes me excited for this season. I was going to be anyway, let's be honest, but these things, just crank it up a little bit more.
You mentioned Foegele, and I want to ask you about him, but I also want to ask you about the depth. So you mentioned both those things in that answer. Depth was a big question this offseason. He brings in Ryan McLeod. He looked really good at the end of last season. Is depth still a big issue for you on this Oilers roster up front, or have they answered those questions?
Well, I think they have, but until we see it, I don't know. Like Warren Foegele, I've read a lot about him. I can't tell you much, though. Like, I haven't watched him like last year. I didn't see the Carolina Hurricanes play once. So I can't tell you a bunch other than the stuff I read, which is all real good. It's I've talked to some NHL scouts that have told me they really like him because same thing. He battles, big body that can make some things happen. There's some ability there. So I want to see that for myself. Yeah, to me, it looks like this team's added more than they had last season, which I think is really good. And that gives them a chance to be successful. Now we have to see it all be put in practice and see, who meshes well with who and all those sorts of things. These are all it's not like you're just putting like a fantasy team together. You know what I mean? Like, I got this guy, and this guy. There's a whole different aspect to putting together a hockey team in real life that just doesn't cover. And that's, how well do they get along? Like, how well do they play on the ice? Like, how is that player's, family situation? Everything's good. They're happy where they're at. Like, everything's good that way, because that plays into it too. So, you have to have all those things. So until we get this thing going, and until I can watch training camp, watch preseason, then I'm going to have a lot better idea. But right now, it's just names on paper. So we'll see, but I am optimistic.
I want to ask you about Jesse Puljujärvi. He had a pretty rough beginning to his NHL career, but he seems to have settled in, and the longer last season went on, the better, in my eyes, he looked. What have you made of Jesse Puljujärvi's progression here? And then maybe a little look forward to what you would expect from him this next season.
Well, yeah, going into it, again, I got thrown into it real quick. But I knew the history. I knew the first time he was here that, didn't really go well. And then he went back to Europe. And then he came in last year. And right from the get-go, I'm watching him in practice. I'm like, this guy's having the time of his life. Like, he might be the happiest guy in the history of people. Like, I'm watching him on the ice and he's having fun, he's smiling, and all the guys are like loving him. Like, they're loving everything that he's bringing to the table. And then he had success on the ice, which made it even better. And you could see how happy the guys were for his success. So I'm like, this guy has to be popular within the team. Otherwise, that's not going to be the case. And you're right, he got better as it went on. Like, I think he started like third line. He landed up on the first line, and deservedly so. Like, again, he was winning battles. If he went into the corner one-on-one with opposition, he came out with the puck more often than he didn't. That's a really good trait, right? If you can go win one-on-one battles and come up with the puck, good things are going to happen. You're going to create opportunity from that. If you can't win those battles, those opportunities never happen, and your team doesn't have the puck. That's not a good recipe for success. Yeah, I see him getting better. I think this year will even be better yet. We have not seen even close to what the best that Jesse Puljujärvi has to bring. I did see a picture on Twitter the other day of him catching a really big fish. So I thought that was pretty good too. And I did see some pictures during the season of him out with his puppy here in Edmonton. I thought that was really good too. Like, he just looks like a really fun person that enjoys life and enjoys the game. And I love it. So I wish him nothing but success.
He's got to have a top 5 smile in the National Hockey League right now. It's so big. It's so teethy. He just lets it fly.
It just never stops.
Yeah. It's awesome. I like the player. I hope he has success as well. Just not against my team, but we'll get that the other day. There's one RFA left going here. That's Kailer Yamamoto. You know him from Western Hockey League days. You've called a few of his games back then. You've had a chance to call him in the NHL. What have you seen in the growth of Yamamoto, and do you see any impasse here on the contract in your eyes?
No, I have nothing that lead me to believe that there'll be any issues. So I expect it'll get done before camp starts. But he's had his ups and downs for sure. Like, the second half of last year, didn't get a lot of offensive production. But his effort level is always high. And for me, that's the thing that sticks out with Kailer Yamamoto is he battles, undersized player, but still battles in front of the net, wherever. So I think you're going to have some ups and downs. Again, still really young player, not a ton of experience at this point. So there's going to be ups and downs. You gotta. And I know it. That's tough to say because fans want you want results and you want things right now, and I get that. I absolutely get it. But he's a young player. There's still lots of development and maturation in his game, and I see a lot of potential for that because of how hard he works. And I think if he stays with Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins. I mean, they seem to have a pretty good dynamic, and I don't know. That's what preseason's for, and many things can happen. But when they're together, it seems to work pretty well. So I think he's going to have a good year, and yeah, I hope the contract thing gets done here sooner than later. But I think it will.
It is far too early to know these things. It's far too early to know who's going to play with who. But let's play it anyways. Your expectations overall for the Edmonton Oilers going into the 21-22 season?
All right. You want line combos and stuff? Is that what you're looking for? Because I have
just your expectations.
I have written these.
We can play fan all day. Yeah.
At least my guess. Anyway, or the expectation level of the team. Is that what you're saying?
Let's just go that way. Okay. We could speculate the lines until we're blue in the face, but what do you expect from the Oilers this season?
I think a team that in the Pacific Division, I think they could finish second. I'm probably going to concede Vegas to be first, but I think they could finish second. And again, so many things can change. Let's be honest. For any team, whether that be injuries or whatever. So none of that's lost on me. I understand. But I think it's a team that could finish second, maybe third. And a team that, I mean, given last year losing in the first round 4 straight to Winnipeg, I mean, the focus is going to be having some playoff success and providing depth. That was definitely part of it. Now you got to put it all together and see how it works. So somewhere in that mix, I mean, I usually don't get into the prediction game too big because so many things can change. And like the players, and I do this like from a broadcasting point of view, I know it's completely cliche, but it's been ingrained into me my entire life, is I honestly take it one game like that. I'm not looking 3 weeks down the road. I'm looking, what's our next broadcast? Yeah, that's where I'm looking. Like, so I don't know. I put them somewhere in that mix. I see them as a playoff team and a team that is going to push to get to round 2 or round 3. So I hope that's the case. In fact, I'd like to see them go the entire way and hoist the cup at the end. But only one team gets to do that out of now 32. You know, only 4 get to the 3rd round out of 32. I mean, that's tough math, you know, like when people talk about, you know, winning playoff rounds, it's incredibly difficult to do as some teams have found out a little bit more than others. But yeah, so that's kind of where I guess my expectation level is. And again, that's all we'll see. And I don't look too far ahead for sure.
It's funny you mention it and you word it that way, because when I asked Peter Lombardi the same question about the Flames, he gave me a very similar answer to what you just gave. So you're not alone in the broadcast world with that type of answer there. Cam, this has been a ton of fun, but before I let go, I have to ask, Canada women last week come out with the gold medal. Just a word on what you saw and what and how proud you're Canadian watching those women win that world championship.
I was so excited. It was a great game. I mean, the Americans are so good. And of course, Team Canada, they're at home and they hadn't beat them at the World Championships for so long. But again, the margin of victory is just wafer thin. And when they were down 2-0 in the first, I was like, oh, well, I mean, what are you going to do? U.S. is very good. I didn't feel like they were getting heavily outplayed because they weren't, but it was 2-0. And then you get the 2 back in the second. So I'm watching the 3rd period and just like, I'm on pins and needles now. Like, somebody please get ahead. And then it gets to overtime. I didn't realize until they said it on the broadcast that it was 3-on-3 and there was no shootout. Like, I didn't know that they had changed it to that.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's 3-on-3 till somebody scores. Well, it's 3-on-3. Somebody's going to score. And that shot by Poulin off the bar, and in real time, I kind of thought it was in, but like, it happened so fast, I wasn't sure. She clearly thought it was in, and thankfully it was, barely. But that was a great shot, really good pass too. Like you had to make that pass at the right time, otherwise that was going offside. So that was so exciting. The only thing I wish is that the stands at the Wynn Sport in Calgary had been full. That's the only thing. I wish it had been absolutely jacked. I know they had friends and family there, which is great, but it would have been nice to see that place full for that. But other than that, I mean, so happy for them. It was great. Anytime you get drama like that, and that was, heavy drama. Canada, U.S. For the women's championship. I mean, we all knew it was going to come to that. Let's be honest. It would have taken a monumental upset for it to be anything but. However, they did provide a great game, and it was really fun to watch. I'm very happy for them.
That game once again proves overtime is both the best and the worst thing ever in a championship game. Yeah, Cam, this has been a ton of fun. I thank you so much for your time today. Good luck on calling your games for Edmonton this year, and I appreciate you joining me here on the Double J Hockey.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cam.
All good.
Cam Moon of the Edmonton Oilers, radio voice of the Oilers on Chet up there in Edmonton. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Double Digit Hockey Show on ASTVProductions.com and the Double Digit Hockey Show YouTube page. We'll see you guys all again next week. Look forward to having Gene Principe, some more Oilers talk for you next week on the show. Look forward to reading that one. Thank you so much for joining me today on the show. We'll see you next week. Yeah, Cam, that's perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Wait, hey, what's the jersey behind the Lethbridge one?
That's Team Canada.
Oh, okay, that's Team Canada. And then you got Canucks, Oilers, Flames. Oh.
Yeah, I bought that one the year John Tavares was at the World Juniors.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. So
yeah.
Don't worry about that Canucks one that was donated to me for the show.
Yeah, it would have to be, hey?
Nope. Yeah. Well, it's a Western Canada type show, so I got to get all three teams in there. And truth be told, the Oiler one was donated to me too. But it's okay. That Canucks one gets hidden in my head a lot, and that's what I prefer. So
yeah, that's probably a good idea. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for having me on, man. That was awesome. I enjoyed that.
No, Cam, that was perfect. That's awesome. I've been wanting to get you on for a long time here. And Paul Figger from Red Deer, I know him from Dub Network there. Yeah. He kept saying, get Cam. I'm like, I'm trying, but that guy is busy. And then last year just didn't work out because you had all that quick switch over to the Oiler. Oh. So yeah, I can't imagine. It goes out less than 5 days.
Oh, I went from walking my dogs to watching practice at Rogers Place. It was like a handful of days. I'm like, what the hell? Jeez. Look, what is happening right now? Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Look forward to hearing you on the call this year, Cam. Thank you so much for your time.
If you need anything, let me know.
I'll let you go.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah, bye. What's up, buddy? You're hungry. Hello, hungry.